And we're back. Welcome to
Woo!
another episode of Armchair GMs brought to you by Jocks of All Trades podcast. I'm one of your hosts. I am Bugman Jay, this man
And
over
I'm
here.
Matt.
And here's our show. What's going on, Matty Ice? You doing all right, brother?
I'm not too bad. It's actually been somewhat of I use the term very loosely, relaxing week. Um, but all in all, it hasn't been a bad week. Just doing my thing, working and everything else like that. So,
Yeah.
how about you, bud? How's the week been for you and the fam?
Same here, man. Down here in South Georgia, it's been feeling pretty good lately. I got to tell you, bro, it's been feeling really good to live down here in this area because that hurricane just killed all the humidity in the air. Our thoughts and prayers do go out to all of the hurricane victims, but one of the things that comes along with it is a lot cooler weather, especially with the fall. So it's been feeling pretty good out there. A lot of my work is outside, part inside, so feels good.
I was gonna say, with me being in the Midwest, it's a game of Russian roulette on the daily. In the mornings, you feel like you need a hoodie, and then once it gets to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're like sweating to death. So it's
Yeah.
just like it's a roller coaster for now. So as we get closer to Halloween, the temperature will drop a little bit more and
Yeah,
be a little bit more consistent. So, but
that's
no,
what
I
we're.
love this time of year though.
Yeah, everything seems to slow down just the right pace for you. The weather's pretty good.
Hmm.
You got about a month and a half window. This what I call our spring and a half spring. This is our half spring, so it's pretty good, man.
Yeah,
Uh,
winter is coming.
yes, winter is coming. Speaking of winter, I want to give a rec for all those who don't know the terminology. That's a recommendation. I want to give a rec for a show, House of Dragons, the Game of Thrones prequel. I don't know if I mentioned that me and my wife were watching that show on here, but I like it. The a lot of people are getting upset because they're doing the time jumps and
Yeah, I
not
was
really
gonna say,
telling
but
you they're doing time jumps. Time jumps.
yeah, well, I have missed the past couple episodes just due to timing and everything, but um, I need to catch back up.
Yes, it's good.
But no, I am a huge fan of it. It does. I mean, I'm one of those people that does kind of bother, with the whole time jump, but I get it. I
Hmm.
get it. So, but now that you're mentioning that, there is one recommendation that I have on Netflix. I did find time to watch it. It was the Redeem Team.
How did I know you were going to bring that up? How did I
Dude,
know you
I
were going to bring that
I
show up?
watched it and I loved every single minute of it. I
Yeah,
do wish it wasn't just an hour and a half long. I do kind of wish they had done like a mini series on it.
yes,
But all in
definitely.
all, I loved it.
Good,
If you're a
good. Yeah,
basketball fan or a sports fan of any sort, go watch the Redeem Team.
it's great. That's all I can say.
Oh yeah.
I love basketball, and that's one of those things you can watch over and over again and just feel like, yes, you were a part of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But as we do every week, I'm gonna ask you just a random, not so random question that we do every episode. What
Mm-hmm.
was something that really? I'm gonna turn it on its head today. What was something you saw the weekend that really teed you off watching sports?
So for me, I go to that Kansas City and Las Vegas game.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Jones got the sack on on Derek Carr there. I think it was late first half, early second half. I forget where it was exactly, but like they had the roughing the passer call, and it's like I know there's a fine line between of what a roughing the passer call and the sack is. I get that, but for me, it did not look like roughing the passer. It just looked like a fundamental sack.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, the body weight did roll on to Derek Carr, but if I don't know how close you look, but he did have his left hand down to try to
brace for the
You know,
fall.
yeah. So it's just like, what for a defensive lineman? What are you supposed to do in that instant?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not a big guy. I've never played defensive line, but I'm thinking to myself, man, what would I do in that situation? Like, what are you supposed to do?
definitely. And to kind of add to that one, there was another call in the Atlanta Falcons game where 3rd and 5, and they had Grady Jarrett sacked Tom Brady, and that opportunity would have given the Falcons the ball again and the chance to, you know, have a game-winning drive, only being down by 5. I really do like them going for 2 in that instance and being only down by 5. That shows that you're aggressive and that you're sure that your offense has capabilities to score, which is something that surprised me, seeing how pedestrian that offense had been every week before this week. You know what I mean? So that's a big vote of confidence in me. But the roughing the passer call was clearly a bad call because in the instance he wraps Tom Brady up and he rolls him and doesn't even land and put his full body weight on Tom Brady at the end of the sack. And his hands weren't extended. Tom Brady's hands weren't extended. He wasn't grabbing him anywhere. He didn't pick him up and sling him. And that call has been talked about ever since as being a very bad call. And I have to say it, you know, the referee calling this year is a little bit more sensitive than it's been in the past, especially when it comes to quarterback related stuff.
Yeah, I've noticed that just from the few games, just from watching the games. It's like, man, we are. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. Like, I don't think I've seen it this like, for lack of better terms, bad since
Yeah.
the replacement
Yeah, the replacement
referees.
year. Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Oh,
Let's not bring
one
back
other
those
thing.
days.
Yeah, one other thing that kind of ticked me off, and this is simply through fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Kelce scoring 4 touchdowns. Because of him,
Mm-hmm.
I lost in my one league, and I'm just like, you've got to be freaking kidding me.
Yes.
Like, you've got to be kidding me. So that, I mean, congrats to Travis Kelce for putting up the stat line that he did, but it
With
cost me a
so
win.
few receiving yards. With
Yeah.
so few receiving yards. Which
Yeah.
we'll probably touch on. But 4 touchdowns, he literally put me from a position where I literally stopped looking at my lineup for that week, the matchup, because I was so sure I was going to win because I was down by maybe 67 points. And him combined with their defense kind of saved me in a way. It wasn't their defense. It was someone else. But if it wasn't for Travis Kelce, I wouldn't even have been in that position to even have that miraculous comeback that I did have in my one league. But there you go. That's the way it swings.
Yeah, I had a few choice words after all that. I was like, you've got to be freaking kidding me right now. Like, because I wasn't up big, but I had a comfortable lead. And what ticked me off even more is, with him putting up the stat line, I lost by 2 points.
Oh.
That's what upset me the most. Is like, oh my God. So it is what it is. All I can do is just bounce back and then go from there. So fight to live another day.
Fight to live another day. All right. As we move forward, we got to pay some bills. We got Matty Ice on the ads today. Let's see what he's got for us.
All right. So our first ad comes from Fresh Cuts. Fresh Cuts is a local barbershop in Marion, Indiana. Contact Caleb Kemper for an appointment time through www.freshcutsbarbershop.com. It's not just a haircut, it's an experience. Our next ad comes from Steve Wood Illustrations. Here for all your art needs from Star Wars to G.I. Joe and beyond. See him for all your nerds in your life who aren't sure what to get. Our friends from Afro Latinos are changing things up. Check out the Culture Corner podcast featuring Aubin and Shaylin and hear from them soon as they are still under construction. Then our next one's Rules of the Frame is another friend cast specializing in movie reviews and pretty much anything there is. Connor will soon be a guest on our other show, Smash Popcorn, and we look forward to collabing with them. And then 1,000 Wives of Weird is just that. Weird. From reviews of weird movies to criticizing bad movie choices, Brad H. and Billy Martell will keep you entertained for laughing for hours on end. Check them out exclusively on Spotify.
And we are done. Here we go. That's what I'm talking about, Maddie. You just slipped right in there.
Thanks. Now, before we get into everything, we talk about our ads.
Mm-hmm.
So, for bad movies, what is in your mind like one of the worst movies you've ever seen?
And recent would be The Gray Man. That movie, what's his name? Ryan Gosling.
Mm-hmm.
That movie sucked, in my opinion. It was so bad, I didn't make it halfway into it. I probably got made like 30, 35 minutes tops in that movie, and it was just too much, not enough. It was just bad. The CGI was bad. The acting was bad.
I can see that.
Let me give you a 30-second demonstration of a visualization, right? So you see this fight scene going in super high, it looks like it's going in super hyper speed, and it's like so accurate. But really what's happening, I feel like Ryan Gosling was out of shape. So they filmed them fighting in slow sequence and then sped it up for the movie. But it didn't look realistic, so you automatically knew that it was fake fighting. So it was just bad.
That's unfortunate.
Yes.
For our female viewers out there, if there are any, imagine Ryan Gosling in bad shape.
In bad shape. Having a dad bod out there trying to play it right. Dad bodding it up. There we go. What about you? What is a bad movie?
I am going to take it back to 1997.
Oh,
that long time ago.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Oh my goodness, the second one.
The second one, yeah. The CGI was terrible. The acting was horrible. The script was just god awful in my opinion, and I still am ticked off to this day in 2022. So 25 years.
A good sequel.
Yeah, I mean the first one killed it. Luckily, they redeemed themselves with the Mortal Kombat movie that came out a couple of years ago.
Yes, they did.
Yeah,
they somehow redeemed themselves. Warner Brothers got it right. I could say the same thing about the Street Fighter. They did after the first one. The second one was straight to.
Oh God, I forgot about that.
Oh.
I forgot about that movie. But we digress.
We digress. All right,
we wanted to talk about that.
All right. Do you want to start with Jock or Joke or News and Notes?
I say we talk about news and notes because I want to hear your take on injuries, obviously, and the Devonte Adams situation, from the loss the other night.
Oh, okay. All right. So as we get into our news and notes, before we do, I just want to send out a special request to all of our viewers and listeners, whoever you may be, to do 3 things for us. Like, rate, subscribe. Oh, and one more thing. Let me just add a 4th thing. On Apple Podcasts, please give us a great review. And tell a friend. Just go ahead and give them the glove real quick. Tell a friend. If you can bring one guy to the podcast or gal, that would help increase our viewers and allow you guys to be able to get what we consider to be great fantasy football content. And if there are any things that we miss that we may need to bring up more often, you guys can write reviews and let us know, and we will get that to you as well. So,
help us help you.
There you go. That's how we do it. All right. Let's get into these news and notes, my brother. Okay. We're going to start with the firing of Carolina Panthers head coach and offensive coordinator we know Matt
Matt
Rule
Rule.
signed a contract 2 years ago, so I think it's like $30 to $40 million still in that contract, so he can sit back and wait his time. The indications he's probably going to go back to coaching college football, presumably. It's probably his best avenue. I want to think about it from the fantasy perspective and maybe real life NFL perspective a little bit with the possibilities of one, Christian McCaffrey not being a part of the Carolina Panthers past the bye, and two, also possibly moving on from either DJ Moore and or Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson, in my opinion, seems the more likely to get moved because he's on an expiring contract, and so that's like just getting free money to get someone to possibly help another team make it to the playoffs. But what do you feel on the trade-o-meter to kind of switch lanes a little bit for the likes of Christian McCaffrey?
So with that, I just want to say, I mean, it's obvious that Carolina is going to get in full rebuild mode.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I see them moving Christian McCaffrey for something or other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because he hasn't been able to stay healthy through his tenure with Carolina. Not that he's a bad player. Not that he's a bad player, but,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he hasn't really stayed healthy, you know, over the years. I feel like DJ Moore, you could probably get some trade value. If nothing else, get a pick or maybe even two. I don't see teams offering anything more than maybe a third-round pick. I mean, he's talented, but I don't think he's really proven it with Carolina. So it's going to be one of those buy low situations.
I think he's probably closer to a buy medium high, because he has consistently put out 1,000-yard receiving seasons, even though the touchdowns haven't been there. But in the years past up until now, where it seems like the wheels have just fallen off. But he has some consistency. So I think a second round will probably be somewhere in the middle, maybe tack on maybe a fifth or sixth round, and you probably can pull him away. Because I don't see them being competitive starting PJ Tucker.
No.
You know,
and Robbie Anderson obviously hasn't lived up to the hype like ever. Even with his time in New York Jets, I don't think he was as talented as others claim him to be. But I'm being a little probably harsh on it because I have fallen victim to Robbie Anderson's numbers and fantasy. So, you know, for me personally,
he's too much rust and not enough.
Yeah, exactly. So 3 names that come to mind, which you and I talked about before the podcast, you know, well, I agree with you because you're the one that brought these two up, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. And I see Christian McCaffrey, you know, not being part. Like, I see them. If they make it to the trade deadline, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, if he's still on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving forward, Commanders, Ron Rivera talked about Brian Robinson, and he said he's just seeing the spirit just come back to life. It's a boost for this offense. I really feel like Antonio Gibson has really played himself out of a role now that Brian Robinson has made a resurgence. We did see him play limited snaps this past Sunday, so that gives you a sense of optimism. I really feel that if this offense, it just really depends on how well they play this week. It doesn't seem to be going to be a very high scoring game. So it may be a lot of pure running, which he is exceptional at. But I do see if this is more of a high scoring game, possibly JD McKissick being a flex value, seeing as he's given at least 7 fantasy points per game this season. So you can really see a floor there. But Brian Robinson's probably the brightest spot in this offense, and I really feel if you don't have him on your team and he's available in the waiver wire, which depending on which league you're in, he may or may not be. But he's a good addition to have to the team because I really feel like Antonio Gibson has worked himself out of the offense, and given the opportunity, Brian Robinson was the best running back coming out of training camp, and if he had not had been shot, he would have been the starter. So, and if he shows that he's worth it, it's a pivot. I really feel like Antonio Gibson owners are going to be really sadly mistaken if they did not pick Brian Robinson up and put him in their IR. All right. Any takes on that?
For me personally, back to Ron Rivera for a second.
Mm-hmm.
He was, they press conference or post game conference. They touched on Carson Wentz a little bit, and he had no problems. Basically running him over with the bus or putting him in reverse, back and forth. Basically, just talking about the level of play that Carson Wentz has put up, the past couple of weeks. It's been lackluster at best. But, I kind of thought that, was interesting. It's just like, okay, so we're just going to completely throw him under the bus. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
But back to Brian Robinson. I agree with you wholeheartedly with, Antonio Gibson kind of, sealing his fate with the Commanders. It's been kind of interesting to say the least this season.
Mm-hmm.
With me, I picked up Brian Robinson, and then during the draft, and then I stashed him in my IR and just been holding on to him ever since. And it's just like, listen, I feel like this kid is going to be something special in Washington. I do. Maybe not right out the gate because he's still playing on limited snaps, but he's going to be working himself further and further up, to play time, and his snap count is going to get higher, and I think it's going to get better over time. So,
All right.
yeah, I feel like if you drafted Brian Robinson, you let him go, after everything happened, I feel like you're really going to miss out.
Okay. All right. Moving forward. Aaron Rodgers sat out practice today. Matt LaFleur is not concerned about his status for Sunday. He is dealing with a thumb issue. His thumb was sore from the final hit he took in the loss to the Giants. And a day later, he's sitting out of practice. I would say in my level of worry, is probably a 2, because if the coach and the player are both saying that they're fine, Matt LaFleur is pretty straightforward when it comes to his players, and he talks to the media, and if he doesn't feel a concern, I feel pretty optimistic in his availability to play on Sunday. So, moving forward, this is a good note. I believe Brad might be happy with this. Ravens rookie linebacker David Ojabo returns to practice. He was injured when they drafted him, and to see him practicing is the sign of relief. They also had their fellow outside linebacker Tyus Bowser also returned to practice, so that defensive line may start to come back into form and also add a new injection of rookie life into it. So that gives me a little bit more optimism with Baltimore and their lackluster defense as of yet. It hasn't been to the level of old, and it feels good to have them get players healthy. The league is what it is because of the injuries at any given time could swing fantasy for any player. I've had the injury bug hit me 3 times in the form of running backs. So you have to be able to look at these things a little bit and try to see where it fits. Cordero Patterson is also scheduled to be coming off IR soon, so that's another thing to look up. And my bus, I'm going to talk about some players in particular off that team that really didn't live up to the hype. Okay, moving on. This is another pressing thing that came out of the waiver wire today. Came out on the news wire today. The Cardinals-Seahawks kickoff that's scheduled for Sunday will be moved back if the Seattle Mariners have to play in Game 4 against the Astros. So that game was originally scheduled to be played at 4:05. But if the Astros have to play another game on Sunday to clinch they will have to move that game back because they're probably playing at that stadium. So that is something in the news. Dak Prescott was back in practice, but he was just testing the resistance of his thumb throwing the ball. All indications from coaching staff is that they're preparing the game with Cooper Rush. Um, he'd been playing pretty good up until last week, I believe. He wasn't burning the doors off. He wasn't burning the barn doors off, playing outstanding football, but he was doing some things. And
I
you
was
feel
gonna
like
say, like, with Cooper Rush, he may not have played his best game on Sunday, but at the end of the day, a W is a W.
yeah, definitely.
So I think I know I've taken my shots at Dallas. I know literally, if you're a football fan at all, you've taken your shots at Dallas Cowboys over the years. But in my mind, it's going to be interesting to see what happens once Dak does come back.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that Cooper Rush is going to take Dak's job, but or
How
anything like that.
productive will the
So
offense be once Dak gets back?
yeah, and because I'll be honest, I thought that Zeke would, his production would go up a little bit more. I thought Pollard would, go up a little bit as well. But really, Cooper's been holding his own, and I gotta say, I'm impressed by the guy. I'm not saying that a team should trade for him. So I'm not saying that at all. So no one take notice of that. But it does make me wonder, is Cooper Rush? Could he be a legit starter, or is it just Kellen Moore's system that works for him, and why he's had as much success as he's had? So I don't know. That's my take on Cooper Rush, though. He's not a bad quarterback, I don't think. So
Okay. All right. Let's speed through our news and notes. The Raiders' Devonte Adams was issued a citation after the post-game shove. The Raiders wide receiver Devonte Adams has been charged with a city ordinance violation for shoving the camera guy. Um, he could most definitely, possibly, be suspended as well. That was something they were thinking about. So,
I was gonna say, I know he's looking at discipline from the NFL.
mhm.
Listen, things happen. You know, obviously we can't speak on the minds of professional athletes, but things happen, and the fact that you literally had a cameraman coming towards you after
Mhm.
you just lost, and possibly in the worst possible way imaginable. I don't know if you saw that last play, but him and Hunter Renfro, they were supposed to run crossing routes, and
Oh
instead of running
yeah.
past each other, they ran into each other. So he's already, I'm just going to say, pissed off about that. And then to
Hmm.
have a cameraman coming towards him, I'm not, I'm not accepting, how Devonte Adams, like his reaction. But I could see where he was coming from. The last thing you want is a cameraman coming towards you after that. So I get it. Does it make it right? No.
No.
But he's coming up on a bye week. Is it one of those where he'll possibly miss a game?
Hmm.
Probably. So, which I am a Devonte Adams fantasy owner in one of my leagues. I'm already anticipating he'll probably miss, not obviously not this week, but the following week. So
Yeah. I feel the same way as well. Okay. Moving on, finishing out our news and notes. Da, 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 da. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa returned to practice field on Wednesday. Timeline for return is still to be determined. They are not pushing this issue right now after his injury, after that second concussion that we all feel like that he had. The protocol for concussions has changed completely. It seems so. He is progressing. Tyrod Taylor is progressing through protocol as well, but he has also not been cleared to play. So we're looking at the third string quarterback as of right now. So I don't know how much stock you would put into some of their players. Tyreek Hill is also dealing. I'm sorry. Tyrod Taylor is not their backup quarterback.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy Bridgewater. I'm sorry. He's coming through protocols. And uh, Tyreek Hill looks like he'll be available for Sunday as well. So that's about it. Besides Grady Jarrett roughing the passer call that I felt was BS. That's about it. Do you have anything else?
I'm looking at the third stringer for the Miami Dolphins. I got a notification about that earlier, but I think the Dolphins are looking at starting him, Skylar Thompson. This week against who are the Dolphins playing? Oh, Minnesota.
Oh.
So it'll be interesting, that matchup between Minnesota and Miami. We'll touch on it here in a few, but I'm looking forward to seeing that matchup between Minnesota and Miami. So there's a couple games I'm looking forward to.
Let me pull it back a little bit. Let's go back to Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera recently apologized on Tuesday for creating a stir regarding Monday's comments regarding quarterback Carson Wentz. I guess he's trying to back it up a little bit because I think Carson Wentz may have had something to say about how the support or lack of support he was receiving from his head coach. So might there be a little stir, or maybe this might just light a fire for Carson Wentz to be more than just mediocre? I'm not going to be the one to assume, but it just seems like there's a little trouble in paradise there. I have seen that their defense has been playing better against the run in the last 2 weeks, but there's a lot that needs to be fixed there, and I don't think bad-mouthing each other is the way to get in the right direction.
No, and it's one of those, like, if there's bad chemistry within the organization, then it's a recipe for disaster. So, it's one of those, okay, you've made it abundantly clear that Carson Wentz may not be your quarterback of the future, but I wouldn't necessarily say Sam Howell is either. So, I mean, at this point, though, would I rather have Sam Howell starting?
To see what he can bring to the team.
Exactly.
Really? But, okay.
Exactly.
Moving on along to speed this up a little bit. Patriots running back Damian Harris is dealing with a hamstring injury. He's expected to miss a couple of weeks. That would put Ramondre Stevenson at the top of my waiver wire list for this week. If the sample size of what he gave us filling in for Damian Harris is any indication, I would want him at least on my bench in the coming weeks. Moving forward, Russell Wilson is dealing with a shoulder injury, a lat injury. He should be ready to play on Monday, but I think that might limit the optimism we have in them turning this offense around. If he's once again dealing with an injury and trying to play through it, it's like we're getting deja vu from the last year he had with the Seahawks. The LA Rams have not yet to extend a last offer to OBJ. Looks like he is ramping up in anticipation of returning. He does have a top 4 list, but it is kind of weird that how they are they're literally starving for wide receiver help, and they're not giving him a ring, seeing how much he carried them in the later half of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady we're not going to talk about that. Tom Brady had some comments about Grady Jarrett's sack. He said his sack was more like a long, unwelcome hug. I don't know what that means.
I was going to say that's a interesting take.
Yes, Devonte Adams did apologize for shoving the person after loss, but he's like I say, he's still facing penalties for that. Darren Waller exited Monday night with a hamstring injury. We do know that he has not practiced, so Hunter Renfro looks bad. So it just looks like if they don't have Devonte Adams, how is this offense going to survive? Because Josh Jacobs can only do so much. So this is just an indictment on Derek Carr because they're not going to be able to put it on his shoulders because if he doesn't have a reliable target, it doesn't seem as if he can complete passes.
So they did go out and sign a wide receiver. They signed Albert Wilson, which I'm not putting much stock in. I can't remember the last time I even heard Albert Wilson's name on a football squad.
I don't even know who that is.
So, case in point there. So, it's going to be one of those where, someone's got to step up.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's going to have to. Like you said, there's only so much Josh Jacobs can do. Darren Waller, he's been hit and miss, more miss than hit, this year so far. And then, Hunter Renfro has just been like he's not lived up to the hype that I know we talked
last
about.
year. Yeah.
Yeah. So someone's got to step up. Someone has to if, Devonte Adams can't go in week 7.
Yeah.
Who it's going to be, don't know.
Don't know. It definitely is not going to be Albert.
I was going to say, let me go to the good old interwebs here. Yeah, Albert Wilson. Last played in Miami, 2021. 25 receptions, 213 yards, no touchdowns. The year there was a gap there in 2020. He did not play.
COVID year.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Good call. Didn't think about that. And then 2019, also for Miami, 43 receptions, 351 yards, 1 touchdown. So
limited use.
Yeah. It might be one of those where, he has 2 weeks to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case scenario. So it's one of those, could be a one and done type of ordeal, or if he comes in week 7 and just blows the doors off.
Or just at least plays consistently.
Yeah. Maybe, just maybe, he can work himself up on the roster to where he's a consistent target for Derek Carr. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball to, make that prediction, but you never know.
You never know. All right, moving on from our news and notes. We're gonna pivot a little bit. Matt has to step off for a second, so I will take care of our jock and joke portion, and we will see you when you get back, Matt. All right, let's. I'm just that down for a second. All right, here we go, guys. All right, we're going to talk about my jocks of the week. All right, it goes without explaining for quarterback. The jock of the week is obviously Josh Allen. His stat line was impeccable. He was 20 for 31 with a 60.5 completion percentage, 424 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did have 1 interception, but he also had 5 rushing attempts for 42 yards with a fantasy points of 36.2. So he is definitely the jock of the week. He got a lot of help from Gabe Davis down the lines, and it really was a great day. Honorable mention obviously goes to Geno Smith. He has consistently outplayed his ADP by light years, being that he was a waiver wire pickup for most players. He is, as of right now, only 35.3% rostered. in most leagues. This is the consensus from Fantasy Pros. So he is very available. And being QB4 this week, if we look back to week 4, he was QB2. And if we go back one more week to week 3, he was QB7. So the lowest he's been in the last 3 weeks, from weeks 3 to 5, was 7. This highest being, I think, I say 2. So he is he's outplaying his ADP. He's being very consistent, and he is worth waiver wire pickup. All right, we're going to move to my jock of the week at running back, which is Leonard. It's a tie between Leonard Fournette and Austin Eckler, and you can really pick your poison because both of them played very effectively. It just seems like one was very effective in the pass and the other was very effective in the run. The former being an uncommon name in Leonard Fournette, and the latter being Austin Eckler. Let's start with Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette was 14 rush attempts, 56 yards, 4 yards per attempt, and a touchdown. He also had 10 receptions on 11 targets for 83 yards and a touchdown to give him 35.9 PPR points. And Austin Eckler had 16 rushing attempts for 173 yards. That's 10.8 yards per attempt. 71 was his long. He had a touchdown, and he was 4-for-4 on receptions for 26 yards and another touchdown that also gave him 35.9 fantasy points. That is pure gold right now because in Leonard Fournette's case, him being able to catch out of the backfield to try to kind of give Tom Brady a little bit extra time, he was able to pick Atlanta's defense apart because he was able to get to his check down, and his check down was very effective with having 83 yards, 8.3 yards per reception. And Austin Eckler, kind of out of his usual, not to have as many. He had pretty good receptions and also got a bulk of the rushing work. So, therefore, he has a lot of opportunities to score. Honorable mention goes to Breece Hall and also Josh Jacobs. They played very well. Josh Jacobs had 30.3 fantasy points, and Breece Hall had 27.7 fantasy points. I think Breece Hall has solidified himself as the true number one running back. So, there he is, and we are back. You're just in time, Matty Ice. You're just in time.
Woo.
I just got done. I'm just finishing up my last running back jock. I had my jocks. It was a two-way tie for first place with 35.9 fantasy points with Leonard Fournette and Austin Eckler. It kind of seems as if their roles in their offense kind of switched for a week because Leonard Fournette was way more effective in the run game than he was in the pass game. And it seemed like Austin Eckler was way more explosive in the in the run game than he was in the pass game. I gave an honorable mention to obviously Josh Jacobs and Breece Hall because Josh Jacobs in particular has really taken the reins on the offense, and Breece Hall has taken the reins as number one RB for the Jets offense, which I have to say, once again, I didn't predict. I thought there was no way he was going to be able to take Michael Carter off the field after how he played last year, but Breece Hall's better.
I was going to say Breece Hall has really stepped up, which, I was really excited watching that kid come into the during the combine, seeing him do what he can, do. And I think he's going to be great for that Jets organization. As far as Josh Jacobs goes, he's had a solid couple weeks. Maybe, just maybe, he can re-solidify himself as an RB1 and just, keep playing at that consistent level. Eckler, it's nice to see him get back into form.
Yes,
especially after a slow couple weeks. So
hopefully it keeps working that way because, like I said, the first couple of weeks of the year, the running backs that we picked to be the top guys have been pretty underwhelming. And we didn't talk about the fact that Benjamin has a chance to start this week if James Conner is hurt. I put a lot of stock in that. He's not rostered in over 25% of leagues right now, 25% in any league by consensus. So he is a top waiver wire pickup. I'm sorry to step ahead of myself a little bit there.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
But yeah, it's been a lot of inconsistency with running backs. And I really just feel as if we needed is just to see that the running backs were actually worth what we were getting for them. I'm still doubting Aaron Jones. I'm not doubting Christian McCaffrey as much, even though he is dealing with an injury as well. I forgot to touch on that. So he's not out of the woods. Whew. I want to see what Kenneth Walker does with his opportunity this week, but we'll get to that road when we pass it. Let's pass it on to you, brother, for your wide receivers and tight ends.
So I don't know what you saw, but for me, for wide receivers this week and tight ends, there were a lot of big names that just, went off this week. Like, it was kind of hard for me to have my joke of the week. But, for me, you saw Kupp go off, you saw Devonte go off, Tyreek Hill, Marquise Brown.
Yes.
But I think two names that come to mind for this week for my Jocks of the week. First one, Gabe Davis.
Definitely.
He put up 32.1 points this past week. 6 targets, 3 receptions, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of those touchdown receptions was for 98 yards.
Yes.
So, yeah, I did not think Gabe Davis had that type of speed.
Oh, yes.
But it helps that Josh Allen is your quarterback and put it in a spot where you can literally just catch and go.
Yes.
Which that helped a lot. He had a slow start, for the most part. I mean,
he's pretty Mike Williams-esque.
Yeah, like week 2, I think he was dealing with that ankle injury, and it's just been kind of like slow since he's come back. But he bounced back in the best way possible. I think it should be an interesting day for him and Diggs as they go up against the Chiefs defense, who is giving 164.8 passing yards per game to opposing wide receivers. Which so far that is the 11th highest total in the league. So he's projected for 13.3 points in ESPN and 15.08 in NFL Fantasy. My second jock of the week is Justin Jefferson.
Definitely.
Sure, he didn't score any touchdowns. We didn't get to see a gritty in week 5. But 13 targets for, he had 12 receptions. 10 of those came in the first half, which notably, that's the most receptions in a half since 1995 when Chris Carter did it.
Ho-ho!
So there's your fun fact of the week, boys and girls.
There you go.
He didn't reach the end zone against the Bears, but, his ability to find holes in that defense.
Yes, from any spot on that line. Any spot.
Yeah. And he put up a lot of points. For all fantasy owners. Like I said, 13 targets, 12 receptions, 154 yards, 1 2-point conversion.
Yes.
And he even had 23 passing yards. So that was fun to watch. I was watching that game and I didn't know what to expect when that passing play came up, and I'm just like, what is going on? But he will have a good matchup, I think, against Miami.
Yeah.
Miami's secondary is giving up 7.9 yards per attempt. And it's come out that he's going to try, like the goal this year for him is to hit 2,000 receiving yards. which that would be the first time a receiver has done that. I read that earlier today, and I'm just like, man, that would be something special. Because I think the closest to that, I believe, is 1968 by Calvin Johnson. Before we go into my joke, let's just look at that real quick. Whoops. Career stats for Calvin Johnson. Uh, 1964. Ooh, four yards off. But that mark was set in 2012 when Calvin Johnson just went off on the league. So
Yes.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if Jefferson can meet that mark, provided that he stays healthy. So now, my joke of the week, I had a hard time, deciding which one would be. Because, I mean, Christian Kirk, he didn't have a good week. A.J. Brown also did not have a good week. But the one that stood out to me the most was Deebo Samuel. He had a touchdown, yes. But you and I have talked about this before, about the targets to receptions ratio.
Yes.
He had 9 targets, 2 receptions.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That's
not good. Not good. It's hard for me to say he had a successful week. But I have him in a league, and that touchdown was kind of his saving grace and my saving grace in one of my leagues. But I look for him to bounce back this week against your team, the Atlanta Falcons, which is currently giving up 160 yards per game to opposing wide receivers.
We have our weeks,
I'm not discounting that.
I'm gonna Bugman Jay stat this real quick. If you take out the Seahawks game and quite possibly the first game of the year those stats wouldn't be as big as they are. Because it's 2 games in this season that have really made us look very bad. Particularly how off and on AJ Terrell has been this year. There are weeks that he's dynamite and he held Amari Cooper down, but then let DK Metcalf go yard on him. It's just it's Jekyll and Hyde. But I give them credit. They had 3 key third down stops that gave them opportunity to win last week, but they just couldn't take advantage of it. But that defense is getting there. I'm sorry, didn't mean to take over there. But yes, they are.
No, you're good. You're good. Because I wanted to hear your take on it. So I was just doing one of these.
Oh, stirring the pot.
So for tight ends this week, Jock of the week, I have 2 of them again. I feel like it was a really good week for wide receivers and tight ends. So I was lucky that this was my week this week for wide receivers and tight ends. First one I mentioned earlier, cost me a W in one of my leagues by 2 points. Travis Kelce. He put up 33.5 points, 8 targets, 7 receptions, 25 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had a monster game. I mean, I can't deny that. And, no matter what Las Vegas did, they could not stop him from getting into the end zone. And I was getting more and more upset because I was getting closer and closer to losing my Yahoo fantasy matchup. And it was just like, oh, my God, you've got to be kidding me right now. So, but this week, it'll be interesting because they are going up against Buffalo. So I'm going to get to this later. But Buffalo has not allowed a touchdown by a tight end this year. Travis Kelce has scored in every game except for one this year. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Definitely.
My other jock of the week, which I don't know what position you put him at, Taysom Hill.
Oh my goodness. I swear, like, it just seems as if he just won't go away. Like, he just won't go away. And, like,
he won't.
Did you look at what they did and you're just like, why haven't you guys implemented this all year?
I don't know why they
so
don't.
Much better.
I don't know why they don't, because this is not the first time. It's not the second time. It's a yearly thing where Taysom Hill just, like, he's gone for 2 weeks, like, you don't hear anything from him, and then he just goes nuts on a game. Case in point here, 34.08 points, 22 passing yards, 1 touchdown. 112 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. The Swiss Army knife himself came in and just, like, ran amok on
everything
against Seattle. Yeah.
And they still lost.
Yeah. Which, again,
Jameis
I don't know.
Getting back. So let me ask you this. How do you feel about this style of offense being implemented when Jameis comes back? Do you feel like they'll still try to find him opportunities, or this is only because they're playing Andy Dalton? Because that's a good fantasy question.
Yeah. The way I think it would benefit New Orleans more if they implemented Taysom Hill in some manner, like consistently, not just one of those, oh, hey, Jameis is gone, or
we're in a pinch.
Oh, hey, yeah, like you can create some sort of package for him, because, like,
obviously, he's
he's a Swiss Army knife for real, a human Swiss Army knife for that offense. Why they don't use him more, I don't know. Because in one way or another, he's going to find the end zone. It's just unreal. So he and the Saints will go up against Cincinnati this week. He's only projected 6.6 points. So I'm not putting a lot of stock into do up.
They're still pretty low on him. He's a streamable target if your tight end's on a bye, if you have the Raiders or Tennessee, any of these teams that this week, Detroit, that's on a bye. If you have TJ Hawkinson and you need a fill-in guy, he's a decent fill-in guy. He wouldn't be at the top of my list, but he would be number 2. I don't really have a clear number 1, but he just still has the potential to bust out on you, and you really don't want that. But yeah.
So my joke of the week, I'm just going to wrap it up real quick. Pat Freiermuth. 2 targets, 2 receptions, 3.2 points. Like I said, it was a good week for wide receivers and tight ends. It was hard for me to find a joke of the week. But
what about
I'm not putting this on. Going ahead.
What about Dalton?
I was just going to say, ooh, I didn't even think about that.
No receptions.
I didn't even think about that.
And they also said he did re-aggravate his PCL strain, but he should be a go for this week. But yeah, that was the guy on top of my list, was Dalton Schultz. 0 targets, 0 receptions, 0 yards.
I didn't even think about him.
But
that's a good point.
Sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just going to add on, with Pat Freiermuth, obviously there's going to be some inconsistencies for the moment, with bringing in Kenny Pickett. Granted, it's still early in the season, or early enough to where you can build some chemistry. And as soon as Kenny Pickett realizes that Pat Freiermuth can be a security blanket for him, because I mean, every highlight I've seen of Kenny Pickett, he's just chucking it down the field rather than throwing the check down to, like, say, Najee or Pat Freiermuth. Like,
let's not get on
as soon as he gets as soon as he gets that realization, I think it's going to benefit not only Kenny Pickett, but fantasy owners of, say, Pat Freiermuth. So
Okay.
that is going to wrap up my Jocks and Jokes for tight ends and wide receivers.
Let me
So
let me throw you a couple zingers at wide receiver and see how you feel about this. I'm going to hit you with something that's kind of a slight lightning round, and we're going to speed it up and get to our actual lightning round. All right, 30 seconds. How do you feel about Amon St. Brown's lack of usage? He played almost the full game, and him and T. Higgins were active, but they were lightly used. But they also both are dealing with ankle injuries. How do you feel about them being? How effective do you think they will be moving forward, knowing that they're dealing with ankle injuries?
So with it's hard to say. Like I feel like Amon St. Brown will still, get his numbers at one point or another. I still think he's going to be effective. T. Higgins, on the other hand, you still have Tyler Boyd, you still have Jamar Chase, and you kind of have an emergence of Hayden Hurst.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those like you still have three other targets. So T. Higgins is not going to get as many looks.
Targets, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Amon St. Brown also has this week's bye in his advantage as well. Extra rest.
Yeah. So with the extra rest, with him still being arguably the top target, aside from TJ Hawkinson, I see him getting more looks and more targets than what, say, T. Higgins will.
Okay. All right. Let me give you one. Rest of season, Amon St. Brown or T. Higgins?
I'm going with Amon-Ra.
Okay. Amon-Ra or CeeDee Lamb?
That's tough.
There's a reason why I asked you this one.
When Dak comes back,
mm-hmm.
I think I would feel more comfortable. I'm not saying he's going to be better, but I think I would feel more comfortable with CeeDee Lamb.
All right. Let me give you my Bugman stat of the day. All right. My Bugman stat of the day is for CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is the only player. This is via Fantasy Pros. I have to drop that notification there. But CeeDee Lamb is the only player with a 30% target share in the first 4 games. With or without Dak Prescott, he has a large. It has the largest target share, bigger than Devonte Adams' target share from last year through the first 4 games. Now, could there be a bit of regression with that? Yes. But if he's a go-to, he's going to continue to be a go-to because he does have some sort of rapport with Dak Prescott. He was doing pretty well with Dak Prescott. So I feel like this should just really build on that. Now that's if you're getting a good Dak Prescott, one that's ready and prepared. They are being a little bit more cautious with him. As I told you before, they are still planning on starting Cooper Rush. They're prepping Cooper Rush to start this game. But with CeeDee Lamb getting that bigger target share, if it regresses, I probably regresses maybe 3-4%, but that's still a better upside. I would choose CeeDee Lamb. So CeeDee Lamb is a very good choice. All right.
I was going to say, I'm just going to kind of, throw this out there real quick, and then we can move on to something else. Like with the whole Dak Prescott thing, I would rather Dallas take their time, make sure that thumb is completely healed, especially with the level – I use that term loosely, that Cooper Rush is playing. They're not in a bad spot. There's no
real reason to push him and rush him back.
Exactly. I would rather – now, if Cooper Rush was barely hanging on, that much, then, yeah, I'd be more, keen to start or, bring back Dak, literally as soon as possible. But I mean, Cooper Rush, he's not playing bad football, so you might as well try to, let Dak get as close, if not at 100%, before you bring him back in. So that's just my take on it. But 30% for CD Lamb for the target share, that's insane. I didn't expect it to be that high.
And Tyler Lockett also has a target share of 25% over the first 4 games as well. So that's someone else to keep an eye on as it goes through. We're going to speed through our waiver wire really quick. I just have a couple of names to add to your list, mostly for deeper leagues. Here we go. Let me get back to it. Where are we at? Okay. All right. My top waiver wire ads for the week would be Ramondre Stevens. Ramondre. I took the wrong one away. Ramondre Stevenson. Also Kenneth Walker the third. Deeper leagues, maybe Raheem Mostert, Myles Gaskins. And if any more, Damani Brown, possibly in deeper leagues as possibly a flex. His upside is limited to Jahan Dotson's return. And I think, and if Brian Robinson is available in your leagues, he would be a good addition. He's probably all sewn up. But in deeper leagues, Eno Benjamin and Darrell Williams. And that is it for me on the waiver wire. Also, a wide receiver, Jacoby Myers, Corey Davis. Tight end, Ottman from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So I only have 3 names tonight for the waiver wire, all 3 running backs. Eno Benjamin. Let's see. He put up 14.3 points this past week. James Conner kind of dealing with a little bit of an injury with his ribs. So he's one I would consider. ESPN, he's 22.2% rostered. So he's out there.
Yes.
You mentioned Kenneth Walker. It's no secret Rashad Penny is out for the year.
Yes.
Granted, if you didn't pick him up yesterday, most likely you missed out because he is rostered 86% in Yahoo leagues right now.
That's up 41% from last week.
Yeah. So hopefully y'all, picked up on that real quick. And then one name I'm just going to throw out there in deeper leagues because he went off this past week, Tevin Coleman.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of that name in a couple of years.
Since he was with Atlanta.
Yeah. But 8 attempts for 23 yards, 3 targets for 3 receptions, 44 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I don't know how much stock to put in it, but
see the role in the passing game.
Yeah. I mean, you see the role there. In deeper leagues, he might do like some great things for you. So ESPN, he's only 3.7% rostered.
That means go out.
He is available. So he is available. But those are my waiver wire pickups. And with that, we are getting into our final segment, my favorite, the lightning round.
I need a soundboard.
Yeah. See, I like that. Let's just do that every week. So let me put my timer up.
All right.
So 1 minute, 3 questions. So this one, we talked on this player earlier. If you were to have Taysom Hill on your fantasy team, how would you determine when to start him?
It's basically matchup dependent. Obviously, you have to give a little grain of salt with him because obviously we hadn't seen or heard anything of him relative to this magnitude in weeks. So it's very matchup specific, but I would really lean heavily on defenses that don't have a very strong pass rush because he seems to exploit teams that are very limited in pass rush. So he has a lot of upside with teams like Seattle, teams like Atlanta, those teams that really don't have a strong offensive line. So his playable meter for me week to week would really be matchup dependent. He's not a very high streamable target. Maybe this week he's possibly could be in for another good week, but it's week to week with me.
Okay. But you wouldn't start him on like a consistent like every week basis.
No, he's not a no doubt starter. I'll have a lot of doubt putting him in certain positions because, like I say, his floor is very low because there could be weeks where he's not used at all, or there could be weeks where he's not very effective because the defense can scheme for him. I really believe he was good this week because they hadn't seen anything like this of this magnitude. So teams may not have scouted him much because they didn't think he was going to be very used in the offense. But truth be told, he was the saving grace of this offense last week, and I don't see them moving away from it. But teams can really scheme that out, and that's what you have to worry about. Does his talent exceed the defense? And a lot of times it doesn't. So,
Okay. Now earlier we talked about the firing of Matt Rule and the possible rebuild mode.
yes,
And we already
not
talked
possible.
about it a little bit. We already talked a little bit about it, with possibly trading CMC, Christian McCaffrey. There's probably a lot of stock in that.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, and we're talking if you were a GM, not fantasy owner, what team do you think has the best chance of landing Christian McCaffrey if the rumors are true?
You would have to look at a lot of teams that are starving for any playoff contender team that's starving for an insurgence of new talent. I think Kansas City's money's tied up a little bit too much, but I do feel like he'd probably be a good fit in Kansas City. The offense is a little bit better. The offensive line in particular will be able to open him up, and he would immediately replace two of those running backs with his one great ability because he packs two things in one. So if he's healthy, there's not really an opportunity to take him off the field. The second team I think he would probably be the best fit for. That's a really tough question. The Eagles ring true to me a little bit. They have a better offensive line. He could be a much greater addition, much better than Miles Sanders. And I think that's it.
I was going to say, for me, I was going to say the Bills, but
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean,
Hey,
there's a few teams
let's
out
throw
there.
You can also throw Baltimore into that mix as well. But speaking of a lot of teams that have the capital as far as draft picks to pick them up, and it's a lot. But I know the Rams wouldn't be able to get him. Even though that would probably be a perfect fit for them as well, because he would turn that offense from being so stale to being one of the best offenses out there because of his ability to stretch that field and give his quarterback some help.
All right. So, last question. This is going to get personal with our viewers out there. As we're approaching bye weeks and the trade deadline, what sort of tips or strategies would you give our viewers in terms of like who to start, who to cut, so on and so forth?
For me, it's the lowest man totem pole scale I use. What I'm saying that is the player with the lowest floor is usually the first one out. Especially if he's a waiver wire pickup, I would not drop anybody that you picked in your first 4 rounds unless you are in a position where they have just become unusable, because any piece can be a buy low candidate. Someone could buy into that, trade you for a bag of peanuts, and a Coke, and you could brings a new insurgence of life into your offense. But as the bye weeks approach, I've been hit heavy because I have a lot of my fantasy teams have a lot of Houston, a lot of the Raiders, a lot of Tennessee. So I've had to make switches. You usually pick up zero RB is pretty hard because you don't really have much talent to pick from because you're already down. But I feel like you should just really scour the waiver wire for the best available talent. You can roll with it, roll with it. Some people just go with one RB, one quarterback, but you got to kind of expand a little bit because the talent is, especially in deep leagues, is not as big. So you're just really looking to scrape by, add what you can.
I like that metaphor you had there, trading for a bag of peanuts and a Coke. So
Yeah,
that sounds good right now.
man.
All
I
right,
told you
well,
I gave up on DJ Moore, and I had to really just take what I could get. And I think what I got was a suspended DeAndre Hopkins and Raheem Mostert, and Raheem Mostert has come through for me, released 10 PPR points in the last 2 games, so I can't be mad at that. And I really feel like Kyler Murray does not play well if DeAndre Hopkins is not on the field. So I feel like that's going to be something I'm looking forward to in Week 7. I want it.
Go.
I need it.
Well, I believe that wraps it up for this week, unless you got anything else.
Oh, no, man. I'm over here getting ready. The Braves game was rained out for the first couple of hours. So as soon as I get off here, I'm going to put me some good chili in my belly and sit back and watch the Braves game and cheer them on. But if anything else, you guys hit us up. Let us know on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. If there's anything that we have not talked about that you guys feel that we need to bring more attention to, just let us know, and we'll get it out there for you. We will get more active on Twitter and our Facebook as the season goes along. Kind of give our halfway points and see. Might do a redraft podcast where we recap our picks and where we would draft them at now during the halfway point of the season. But if there's anything you guys want us to talk about or bring to our attention, just let us know, man. And I'm Bugman Jay.
And I'm Matt.
And this is Armchair
And
GMs.
we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Peace out.